Hey guys, how are you? Welcome again to my channel. I'm sorry I've been gone for kind of a few days. I mean, my life been completely hectic by now. I had a few troubles at work. My mom had surgery on Friday. We also have a new dog. She's kind of sick, so we have to take care of her. And it's been like a really roller coaster of things, so I'm sorry I've been gone for so long. I think I haven't even checked my comments. So sorry about that. I'll get right on to it. And well, today I just wanted to talk about the books that I read in 2016, particularly the bad one. I was going to make two kinds of videos, like one with the best books of 2016 and another one with the worst books or the most disappointing ones. But then I realized that I hadn't read a lot of really good books. I mean, I read books that really disappointed me, or that they were kind of okay, and that was pretty much it. I mean, there wasn't like books published in 2016 that I absolutely loved. So if I was going to make a video with the best books, it wasn't going to be like a very long video. I decided I was just going to share with you my biggest disappointment of 2016. So this is going to be kind of like a pessimist video, but I'm a very pessimist and a cynical person, obviously, so this is kind of just the quality content that I'm going to bring to my channel. So let's get on. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is going to be a bit controversial. Well, I have two books that are going to be a bit controversial because I know that so many people absolutely love them. But the first book I'm going to talk about is... So the book is The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. This was the fourth book and the final book in the Raven Cycle series, so I was obviously really excited to read this one, but I have to admit that it was just a really big disappointment. I have a weird relationship with this series in that I really loved the first book, even though there were some things that didn't quite make sense to me, like why were these people friends? Like, for instance, when Blue enters the group, why does everybody just accept her? Like, there were so many things that I wanted the friendships to be more developed, and instead it's more like an insta friendship and then like an insta love with Gansey. So I never quite felt an absolute connection and like an undying love between these characters. But the second book was probably, oh my god, one of the most boring books that I've read in my life. And I have read some really boring books in my life, let me tell you. But it was so weird because everybody loved it, because obviously, I mean, it was about Ronan and everybody loves him. I love him. But I just found it so boring. I felt like Maggie focused a lot on his sexuality, but not on his character. And that just kind of annoyed me, because there were so many more interesting things about Ronan other than his sexuality. And it was just kind of like fetish. I don't know, it was weird. Then I read the third book, and the third book I liked it. I liked it a lot more. It had a lot of more action. Not a lot, but I mean, these books are not quite action-packed. But I really enjoyed it. They have that same atmosphere that the first book has. And then when I got to the fourth book, I was really excited to read it. And then I started to noticing a pattern. And it was like I was on page 100 and nothing was really happening. So I was like, okay, this is cute, nothing is happening, but I like the story, it's nice. And then I was page 200, like almost half the book, and nothing was happening. And that was when I was getting like, okay, I'm almost half and nothing's happening, but I'm going to keep reading, obviously. I'm waiting for the thing to happen. And then I got to page 300 and nothing had happened yet. Nothing. So that was when I was going a little bit fucking crazy, because I was just so bored, my god. And I just kept reading and reading and reading, and it happened like a weird thing when I just got to the end of the book and nothing had happened. Nothing. It was such a disappointment. I mean, there were so many things that the author could have done in this last book, and instead it just left it at a kind of meh note, and it just was so infuriating because it was so much wasted potential. I mean, I know that many people loved it. I'm sorry. but I just found it such a waste of time. There were a new character introduced that he was cool, but I honestly couldn't give less of a fuck about him. I'm sorry. I wanted to hear more about the other characters that we have met in the rest of the series, but they were kind of meh too, because we had Henry Cheng to focus on for some reason. And then it had the Gansey thing, because we know that in this last book we have to address the thing about Blue killing her true love with a kiss. So I had kind of read a spoiler because someone on Goodreads wrote the spoiler without putting in on the spoiler caps, you know, those little things. So I was going one day through Goodreads, I think it was like a couple of months ago, and I read it and I just wanted to fucking shoot myself because thank you so much. And I was hoping that it will be a lie, but it wasn't. And that was just really disappointing because I felt like it was a really cheap ending. I'm sorry. So no, this was just a real disappointment. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't have fun reading it. It was just not. So for my next book, I'm going to talk about another one that is like probably the most popular one in Goodreads. I was just so disappointed and I wanted something great from it and I didn't get it. My second book is... Ta-da! My second book is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. So yes, I didn't enjoy this book. It was weird because I kind of read A Court of Thorns and Roses the other year and I had fun with it. I mean, it wasn't a perfect book like so many people I know that they absolutely loved it, but I had a lot of fun. There were so many things that I was just so interested about. It was a great book. I think I gave it 5 stars when I first read it because, I mean, it was really fun and I was so looking forward to this sequel because it was going to be about Rysand and the Night Court, and for me Rysand was the most interesting part of A Court of Thorns and Roses. And it's like, I mean, Rysand, he was a dick, like, let's face it, he was a fucking asshole, but he was a fun asshole. I'm sorry, he just was. So I was really looking forward to reading A Court of Mist and Fury. And I think for the first 150 pages, I was so into this book. I was loving it. I absolutely was. I mean, I think I was regretting I didn't buy the hardcover because I was just like, if I keep on rereading this book, because I thought I was going to be rereading it for thousands of times, then this paperback copy, it was going to get ruined. And then I got to a certain part, and just from that point onwards, I can't remember exactly where, but just like the book just went downhill and it became a ridiculous mess. I'm sorry, I know there's many people loved it, but it's just my opinion and I was really bored with it. I think my biggest disappointment with this one was that I was expecting so much from the Night Court, you know, this place of like depravity and perversion and I don't know what, so much excitement, and the book was just so bland and so tame. I know that many people were like really happy about it because it's like, oh, this is a new adult book, there are sex scenes in this. Sex and the flirting and the banting, it was just so lame. Oh my god. I remember there was a conversation about lingerie, and that was like the spiciest the thing got, and it was so boring. Like, oh, maybe I'll buy sexy lingerie. It was like, ooh, maybe you will. Ooh, what the fuck? Where is my sexy Rysand? I mean, he was a dick, but he was a fun dick. This was boring. I think one of my biggest problems also was that you could make the relationship between Fair and Rysand to work without having to turn Rysand into Jesus Christ, because Rysand, he goes through like a complete personality switch, and that's when we find out that Rysand, he's just like this super good guy. But the thing with that was that I just never felt like Fair loved him. It was more like she kind of got stuck with him because Tomlin was a jerk, and I mean, Rysand was perfect, so she might as well love him. But it never felt like she loved him despite his flaws. It was like she wanted him because he was perfect, he was flawless. There was no real love. It wasn't a reality. Rysand, he wasn't real. It was a made-up belief. He was considered to be like a saint. I mean, his only fault was that he cared about his people so much, so he had absolutely no real flaws. And that's not a real person, that's not a real relationship, that's not how it works. So Fair just goes from this abusive dude to Rysand, who is absolutely perfect but absolutely unreal. So it's like another quite sick relationship, because it's just not real either. I didn't like how it was handled. I didn't think it was honest, and it was just quite boring. So I'm sorry, I didn't enjoy it. I don't know if I'm going to read the third book because I was just so boring at the end, so bored at the end, but I don't know. And for my third book, I don't have a physical copy of this, but it's going to be Eva the Hunted by Erin Sommerian. So this was a book that I was really anticipating because it had like a cool concept, kind of like 1,000 Pieces of You, where the girl has her father murdered, and she needs to go find her best friend and kind of crush because he's the one who allegedly killed her father. And this is set in a fantasy world where you have two different kingdoms fighting, one who wants magic, the other, in the one where Brida lives, that they kill all the women with magic. So you have all that kind of. And my problem with this book was that it wasn't anything that we haven't read 1,000 times before. I mean, the character Brida, she was just so fucking dumb. I'm seriously, like, she had the power to realize when people were telling the truth and when they were lying, but she never even considered the fact that she might have magic, and you just have to be stupid not to realize that. Then you have the world building. It didn't really exist because it was more like a backset for the romance. The romance, that was like probably the worst part, because the second Brida got to meet her best friend and crush again after so many years, she became a complete idiot, and like she had this plan of revenge and to avenge her dead father, and that just goes out the fucking window the second she starts seeing this dude. Talking about his smell, because apparently the dude, he will travel for weeks and like he smell amazing. How the fuck can you travel for weeks without bats and smell fucking amazing? You just can't. You just can't. Then you have the predictability. I remember the first time the real culprit appeared, I was like, I bet this person did it. And then you get to the end, it was like, yep, it was this person. So it was completely predictable, completely dumb, completely underdeveloped, and just completely unoriginal. So it was like the whole Trinity quarterly, I don't know, of bad things that could happen. So these are my 3 most disappointing reads of 2016. What did you guys think? What did you guys think of the books I mentioned? Did you like them? Did you not like them? And what were your most disappointing reads of 2016? Let me know on the comments and let's chat. Yay.